We are incredibly fortunate to have with us a renowned expert in the field, Sari Goodman. She's a certified parent educator and coach with a wealth of experience, including over 3 decades as a teacher, an elementary school administrator, and now as an esteemed parent advisor. Sari's background in psychology and education underpins her unique approach to values-based parenting, an approach that fosters clarity and confidence and resilience in both parents and children. Her contributions to the field of parenting have not only been appreciated through numerous podcasts and publications, but also have left a lasting impact on countless families. Today, she will shed light on how parents can harness the power of their own family values to navigate the often challenging terrain of parenting decisions. So welcome, Sari Goodman, to our summit.
Thank you, Carol. It's so nice to be here.
Yes. And so what does it mean then to base your expectations for children's behavior on family values? And how do you feel that it provides clarity and confidence and cooperation?
You know, a lot of times I'll get a question from parents that say, should I let my child eat standing up, right on the wall? Should I let my child get a cell phone? And they're just at a loss as to when to say yes or when to say no. And so I say, you're basing that on your child's behavior. Let's base this on you, the parent. Take back your leadership role. And I ask them, what are your values? What do you think? What are your expectations? What does your gut tell you? And I think our guts are driven by our values. So if you decide and really take a look and say, I value this, and then base your yes or no on it, that will direct you and you'll feel very confident in your no, even if your child's saying, please, please, please. You can confidently say yes or confidently say no.
Yes, we're in the same school on that because I believe also leaning on your values really helps you be consistent too. You know why you're saying yes or no, and it's not based on mood, because I call that drive-by parenting. When you're just kind of, it depends, you're kind of dropping in here and there to give instruction or advice, but then the advice may change the next day because you have a different vibe the next day. But if it's values, it's consistent.
Right. And what you're describing is one of the reasons why children negotiate all the time or whine or cry or are disappointed. Disappointment is really it's the action of expecting one thing and then getting another. You're disappointed. But what if the child knew, oh, my parents don't let me do that, or I'm allowed to do that, or my parents are okay with that? It cuts down on all that negotiation and all that please, please, or all that my friend's mom lets them. And you would actually have a reward. I say it's a reward that parents get in the future, but they get the reward with just calm and cooperation and less crying and whining. It works every time.
I agree. I definitely agree with that. Now, I know you talk a lot about establishing a team approach among the parents in the family. And so talk a little bit more about that and some examples of how parents could implement that team approach.
Right. There's many parents in the home. If you have two parents in the home, what if there's also a step parent? What if there's a grandparent? There could be a nanny. If there's a single mom, it could be a co-parent situation. And two homes, there's actually a lot of variation and a lot of dynamics. And I call that the team. And the team members come to parenting, come to family life from different life experiences. So there could be a different set of values, which could cause conflict. The fact of the matter is that when everyone's clear on what their values are, and everyone's respectful that says, well, you have different values than I have, children can handle that. What they can't handle is the disrespect. Oh, well, your other parent, doesn't know what they're talking about. That doesn't work. So one example is a family that I worked with, a single mom. The child was in two houses co-parenting,
Mhm.
and in her house, she wanted the child to sleep in his own bed, and in the other house, the child was allowed to sleep in the parents' bed. Very
Mhm.
different values, very different lifestyle.
Mhm.
And so it was a problem. And I said to the parent that I was working with, I said, this is what you say. And before that, I had to say, are you willing to stick to you have to sleep in your own bed? Is that a non-negotiable? Because if it's not a non-negotiable and you're going to give in sometimes and not, then this isn't going to work. You have to be certain that this is really something that you value.
Mhm.
And so that was a value, no questions asked. And then you say, in this house, you sleep in your own bed. In the other house, the rules are different.
Mhm.
And that's it. That's all you say. And then you
Mhm.
follow through. And you might have a couple of but crying a couple of nights. And after that, it's done. And
Mhm.
what's great about that is that there's no judgment. It just is. And children can
Right.
handle that. They can handle it just is. And
Mhm.
and they'll say, yeah, I know.
Mhm. 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 And it really prepares them to navigate relationships because that extends to school. Certain teachers operate and run their classes with different styles and in different ways, and they just come to understand and they just adapt without even thinking about it very much. So I agree. That's a very good approach to take and take with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And your example of teachers in schools is right on, because there isn't one specific way that a teacher teaches, and a child can have many teachers and go from class to class and do just fine with different rules and different
Hmm.
expectations.
Hmm. Hmm. And they accept that.
They accept.
They don't push back and say,
Correct.
well, I don't know why my teacher last year let us take naps and we're now in fifth grade and but
Well, they do try that sometimes once in a while, but that ends with, that's the old clarity and respect. Clarity and
yeah.
respect.
Yes. And so speaking of respect, how might using a values-based approach for parenting help build respect, but also resilience in children?
Yes, that's also a plus for parents,
Hmm.
in that if the child knows what the value is and that the decisions are being made based on values, you
Hmm.
get cooperation and it's easier to be consistent. So let's take I have the value of health, wellness, and safety. I believe that in my role as parent is to keep my child healthy,
Hmm.
well, and safe. And if
Hmm.
I base my decisions on that, and I'm very clear with my child, this is my job as parent, so that when the child goes to the park and says, can I run with my shoes off? And I say, no, there could be sharp things in the sand, so no.
Hmm.
And the child comes to me and says, but other kids are running without shoes. And
Hmm.
I always say, well, I'm not their parent, and my job is, and this is the way it is. And no amount of please, please, please will change my mind, because I am so dead fast convinced that my role is to keep them safe, that
Hmm.
I will. And then eventually the child stops asking, can I take my shoes off? Because the answer is always no. The minute I say, oh, well, just this once, I'm done. Because
Right.
then there's always going to be a negotiation, always going to be whining, because the child never knows, when am I going to say yes? When am I going to say no?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and yeah, and that's really it's great to be clear of the boundaries, even as adults. Don't we like to know
Yes.
what we're able to do and what we're not able to do? That's really it's actually freeing to
Yes.
know how you can operate and what the boundaries are. So that's really good. I know that you talk a lot about being able to say yes with clarity and no without sounding mean. And that's that no part with parents. They worry about sounding mean and
Yes.
their children being upset with them.
Right.
So share some strategies on how parents can really do that effectively.
Well, I would say, first of all, children are going to whine and cry. It's expectation. They're children. That's what they do.
Hmm.
And and you're not mean if your child is disappointed, and you're not
Mm-hmm.
mean if your child doesn't like your answer.
Mm-hmm.
It's your job as parent to live your values,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how you base it. And so let's just say the child says, can I write on my hands with these markers? And they're non-toxic markers. Okay, let me think. Health, safety. Sure. Can I
Mm-hmm.
bring toys in the car? Well, it's dangerous if it's sharp, but if
Right.
it's not sharp, sure. Yes, you
Mm-hmm.
can.
Mm-hmm.
Um, can I have a TV in my room? That's a big one. Can I have a
Mm-hmm.
TV in my room? Health, safety, wellness. No, because if you have a TV in your room, it could keep you up at night, and then
Mm-hmm.
you don't get enough sleep. So that's health. So as
Mm-hmm.
you see, every time I'm thinking, and I always tell parents, you have power in the pause. I call it
Yes.
power in the pause.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Parents sometimes feel they need to give an immediate answer, yes, no, and the children are right there. I have to say yes, no. No, you don't.
Right.
You can pause, and you
Mm-hmm.
can say to yourself, here is my value, and I'm giving one value. There are more values, and
Mm-hmm.
you know your values once you've thought about them, and you
Mm-hmm.
tick them off in your head, and you say, is this one of my values? Okay, yes or no, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe. Parents,
Right.
you can say maybe if
Right.
it's not one of your values, but you give yourself the power to pause and think about what your values are, and then make your decision.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I think also with when it's something that you value, it's easier to keep up with and remember too, because that's another thing that I think parents struggle with is they will hand down these limits or whatever, and there's just so many you can't even keep up with them. And so that's where it really becomes important that you decide what do you really care about and what can you let go. And then it's easy if it's aligned with something you care about and you care about it and you're going to care about it on Tuesday and Friday.
Yes, right.
Then, then you don't have to think about remembering it because I definitely remember that when my children were younger. It's like you have so many things to keep up with if it's just kind of random and if it's just how you feel in the moment, yes or
Exactly.
no, as opposed to your
Right.
values. And
Saying yes or no in the moment just because of how you're feeling doesn't work with children, because
mm-hmm,
they don't understand that. And so
mm-hmm.
they're always wondering, is this one of those? Is this one of those? Should I whine now? Should I cry now?
Uh-huh.
Because what the greatest thing about this is that they learn your values eventually, and they start to self-select behavior. I'm allowed to do this. I'm not allowed to do that. I'll give you an
Mm-hmm,
example. One time my child was at another person's house, eating dinner when he was younger,
mm-hmm.
and he didn't roll up his sleeves, and he got spaghetti everywhere, all over his sleeves. And the adult said, oh, your mom's going to be very upset with you. And he
Mm-hmm.
looked at her and said, no, she won't. He knew
Mm-hmm.
that. What? I'm expecting a young child to stay clean all the time. Okay. He knew that that wouldn't upset me.
That, and that's so interesting that you would talk about that because there was one day that one of our sons, I have twin sons who are now young adults. One son had been planning, I mean, he rode the bus because, in our neighborhood, if you live over a mile away, you have to ride the bus. So, air quotes. So anyway, he decided he had worked out in his mind he wanted to start walking to school, but
Hmm.
he hadn't told us. And so anyway, he was walking and he didn't beat the bus, of course. And so we were worried, didn't know where he was and all. So we were at school. I was talking to the principal and all of that, and they even had they have police officers that are just there at
Right.
school resource officers, I think they call them. And anyway, so he was just about ready to help us go out into the neighborhood and kind of retrace his steps, see where he could be. And so just as we were about to head out, our son comes around the corner and is working his way up the hill. And of course, he sees all of us, he knows, oh, wow. And so, we come into the office to find out what is it that you were doing and all of that. And he just, I want to walk to school. I would like to walk to school. And so the principal was talking about, you can't walk, and you understand you have to catch the bus, or you're going to be, you're going to be in trouble, with your mom, if you don't, whatever. And he didn't say anything, but he had a look on his face that told that he knew, from the discussion that I had with him, even with everyone present, the problem was you didn't tell us you were going to walk. And so we didn't know anything about his route, and we didn't allow enough time. Now that we know he wanted to walk, well, you've got to leave earlier because, he was late for school. But it was just that look in his eyes that really told me that he understood what the problem was. It wasn't the
Right.
walking. You didn't tell us you were going to walk. And
Right.
so he knew that he wouldn't get in trouble with his mom just because of that. It was the permission or the notice that he hadn't provided. So it's interesting when they really understand you.
Yes.
That's really great when they understand understand their parents, and they're not like this total mystery about where they stand on things. So I like that.
And that's where you get cooperation. And that's where you say, well, they'll say, yeah, I didn't do that. Sorry. And it won't happen again. It's like, oh, what did you just say? Wow.
Yeah. So how about those families that just really struggle with being judged by others
Yes.
for their parenting decisions?
Right. That's again where your values hold you
Mm-hmm.
up.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about it, I know I get upset. I've been judged also. But you have to think about the fact that they might have different values than you have.
Mm-hmm.
And they might be basing their decisions on their values, which are very different than yours. So
Mm-hmm.
so they're coming at it from a different direction. And they're not recognizing the fact that there are different ways of coming to parenting. There's no one right way, and there's no one right value
Mm-hmm.
that you can come from. And one of the suggestions that I make to parents who are feeling judged is to find your village,
Mm-hmm.
find your people that have similar values to you.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you do that and you feel judged, you go to your village and they set you right. They say, that's not our values. Don't compare yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you need to hear. And
Mm-hmm.
you need a village. You
Mm-hmm.
need your little village. And once you have that, and then you bounce off each other. And then it's kind of like you can ask them, well, what do you think? Because we
Sure.
don't always know what to say. There's
Right.
no rule book. And
Mm-hmm.
it's very specific to our times. I mean, answers to questions that would happen during the pandemic would be very different answers before the pandemic, right? So
Sure.
a lot of our decisions are based on our times, are based on the conflicts that we have around us that are out of our control. And when you have a village, you can ask questions and you can bounce ideas
Mm-hmm.
off each other. And by
Yeah.
the way, it's okay for parents to say maybe. You
Right.
don't have to say yes or no every time. It's just that when you have some of these decisions to make and you fall back on your values, it makes that no easier, and it makes that yes easier also. Sometimes a parent would get, you let your child do that? Well,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. As a matter of fact, I do. Right?
Right. No, absolutely. Absolutely. And you talked about you've given a couple of examples, but wonder if there's some nice responses that people can have, that parents can have when people are um, weighing in on their parenting, and something that they can feel comfortable in terms of responding, and first of all, to other people that are looking in and questioning their approach to parenting, and then also to their children, when their children kind of a language or a way of communicating with children when they are pushing back on what's happening, what's happening to them.
So let's take when your children are pushing back. I mean, I have some sentences where you can like fill in the blanks
Right.
where it's in our family, we,
Mm-hmm.
and fill in the blank. And those are based on your values. And they start hearing that 1, 2, 3, 4 times, they
Mm-hmm.
stop
Mm-hmm.
because in our family, we.
Mm-hmm.
That's one. In my job is to keep you healthy, so
Mm-hmm.
you can have a choice of this snack or this snack.
Mm-hmm.
I always
Mm-hmm.
say it's my job to keep you safe,
Mm-hmm.
so you have to be home from the park before dark. It's
Mm-hmm.
my so you always start with the value
Mm-hmm.
or the very definitive, this
Mm-hmm.
is the way our family works. And it feels fair, and it
Mm-hmm.
feels not arbitrary, and it's not because I said so. Kids
Mm-hmm.
push back on because I used to hate that when my parents would say
Right, right.
because I said so.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then how about to outsiders looking in?
Uh,
Mm-hmm. What are some
well,
responses?
well, one response is I always said, I just go, and it's very non-committal, and
Uh-huh.
it doesn't ruffle any feathers because you don't necessarily want to get in an argument with another parent.
Right.
And the other, you can still use the, well, in our family, we, that works for other adults also. In our
Mm-hmm.
family, we. It's very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it takes people back because they never thought of that way.
Mm-hmm.
um Sometimes parents, when I was at school, sometimes parents say things to build themselves up because they're just not confident. And they'll
Mm-hmm.
say things like, you don't do that, your child doesn't do that. And okay, so here's I'm going to make a confession. I never made my children make their bed
Okay.
because it didn't go through health, safety, or
Right.
wellness. I there were plenty of things like, we had difficulties with. That wasn't going to be one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember someone saying to me, you don't make your child make their bed.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, no, in our family, we focus on,
Right.
I would say in our family, fill in the blank. In our family, we focus on school. If it was school, if it was during a game, the kids were playing sports. And in our family, we focus on sportsmanship. I just navigate away to
Mm-hmm.
something bigger than make your bed. Come on, give me a
Mm-hmm.
break.
Mm-hmm.
How is that even important? Not
Mm-hmm.
to some
Right.
people it is. To my
Right.
life, it wasn't.
Right. Right. And I'm sure that over time they learned how to make up their bed or they just, or keep
Yeah,
things neat or whatever they need to do.
they know how to. I made sure they knew how. if they if they slept over at someone else's house. And
Mm-hmm.
I would say part of being a good guest is when you get
Mm-hmm.
up, you make your bed. That's part of being a good guest. And so let's practice. And I made sure they knew how to do it. And I made sure they made their bed when they went to a guest's house.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Good. Done.
And so what's like maybe a checklist or something that for parents that do second guess themselves and all of that, what are some things that they could kind of say to themselves or run through in their minds to give them confidence to go ahead and make the decision yes or no, or or whether they can resist the urge to change their mind based on outside influences.
Yes, parents, you're allowed to change your mind. It's
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes there's new information that comes in that you didn't have in your first decision.
Mm-hmm.
So you can say to your child, wow, I didn't know that. So let's say they want to go to a party, and I might have said no. I never just said no without checking in first.
Mm-hmm.
But then I said, well, I had no idea that there were going to be 3 chaperones there. Of course you can go. So
Okay.
you can change your mind. The other thing is that you might not have enough information. And in addition to giving yourself the pause, you might give yourself some time.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
might say to your child, I don't know. I have to think about it. Or
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I need more information.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you can give yourself time. There is a lot of pressure to say yes, yes, no, no. I used to tell my child, if you don't give me a chance to think, because it was please, 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 and that, that in your head, and
Mm-hmm.
you just know it, and you're getting frustrated, and you just want to say, fine, just do it. And that just because we're human, right? We just want to relieve that pressure. We just want to get it off and make it go away. But it usually comes back to haunt us in the end. So I'll say, look, I need a few minutes to think. If you don't let me think, the answer is no automatically.
Mm-hmm.
If you let me think, the answer could be yes.
Yes.
So then I'll think, and sometimes I will say still no, and sometimes I will still say yes. But the idea is that the children learn to respect the fact that you're taking what they want into consideration. That's a respect. Even if
Mm-hmm.
you say no, even if you don't know what the answer is, even if you change your mind, even if you
Mm-hmm.
make a mistake, my goodness, we
Mm-hmm.
all make mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, your child respects you and cooperates more because you're taking them seriously. That pause, that time you take, it means you're taking what they want seriously. And
Mm-hmm.
it takes some time, but they get it. And you
Mm-hmm.
get a calmer, more pleasant existence with your child.
Yes, and I talk about that how sometimes just being heard, just the
Yes,
idea that they've been heard, matters, even if in the end the answer is no. But it makes a world of difference.
it
I
does.
agree with you. I really do. So how can we follow you and all the wonderful work you're doing with parents?
I have a newsletter that's free to people who want in, and it comes out monthly with tips or topics that are current that parents are asking about. I also post on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram
Mm.
more current, like this new curriculum, math curriculum that came out. Like, whoa, it's in California, so they changed up again how we teach math in California. So
Okay.
yeah, I had an opinion, so I posted. So
Okay.
those kinds of things, they can find me on LinkedIn. Under my name, Sari Goodman,
Mhm.
and the Instagram is under my company name, which is The Parental Edge. I like what I've talked about here is that parents do have a natural edge in raising their children, and I want to show you how to do it.
I like that. I like that a lot. I'm glad you explained the name of your company.
Mm-hmm.
So, thank you so much. I think that it's so important that parents really lean to their values. I mean, that's really what's going to carry you through because there are going to
Yes,
be trends in parenting, as you said. There, groups that you're a part of, neighborhoods, and all. They're going to have things that are popular that they're going to want to do, and you really can get distracted and taken off course if you just aren't clear about
right.
what matters to you, and that's a courageous approach to parenting. So I really do hope that people will follow you and visit your website and get more information, because parenting is a courageous act, and leaning on your values is a very important practice, and your values are a vital tool for this journey. So I really appreciate the work that you do.
Right. It gives your children, they say we give them roots and then wings, and the values are your roots and your wings. So that's where the importance of them come from.
Awesome.
And if parents are feeling judged, we get judged from time to time. I have in addition to creating a village, I have many other suggestions for creating a bubble so that you just don't feel the judgment and you can just feel happy about being a parent, because it is a joyful experience. It should be a
Mm-hmm.
joyful experience.
Mm-hmm. And I understand you have something for our attendees.
So I have a document 8 tactics to keep from feeling judged,
Mhm.
with 8 strategies for creating a bubble around you so that you can feel joyful about your parents and parenting and not feel judged or feel that negative energy from others. And I've heard that parents who have used these tactics have really found them to be quite helpful.
Wonderful. And we'll be sure to put the link here along with the video so that everyone that attends the summit will be able to access that. I know that's
Yes.
going to be a very valuable tool. So thank you again. Thank you for spending time with me today.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Okay, so
Okay.
I wanted to ask Sari to stay with me for a few more minutes because I really just can't tell you enough how important I believe that parents really getting that clarity and getting their values together really helps pave the way for the parenting journey. I know that's what happened to me when I had my sons because I had lots of unsolicited advice about what to do with my children coming from people who had children, and but of course I always say the best advice came from people who didn't even have children that wanted to tell me what to do. So so I know
I love that one.
how important it was to get clear. So I know that you do workshops and you really work with parents to recognize and define their values. So how does it guide parents, and what's the process like, and how receptive are parents to this exercise?
So when I first meet with parents, because I work with families individually, and will say, they'll tell me what are their challenges. And then I look and see what their challenges are. And I'll say, so what this looks like to me is, can you explain your value? What are your values? It's, some parents, and some parents have just a really unkempt house, and it bothers them. So I'll say, okay, so then order is important to you. Order and organization is your value. And other houses, I walk in and it just looks like a kid's house. There's stuff, toys, whatever. It's a joyous house and everybody's happy with it. Okay. So then that kind of toys are just available and creativity. So I'll say, it looks to me like creativity is a value. And so we'll talk about that. And then as I understand their values, and we try to narrow in on just one or two. And then I say, okay, so now let's look at the behaviors, your challenging behaviors of your child, and let's see how they work with some of your values. And sometimes what we find is parents will say, wow, well, I guess maybe that's not a challenge. Maybe I should just let that one go. And I'll go, yeah, maybe you can just let that one go. But this one, not going to bed on time, right? And constantly asking, can I have water? Can I have one more story? Can I have one more book? Maybe that, because you have a value of your child needs to get enough sleep. So that's how it's amazing how sometimes that pressure of being a parent gets relieved when you realize, hey, I don't have to make sure this happens, because so what? So what if my child wants to not wear shoes in the house? I guess it's fine, right? So you get this relief. And because what you said before was there were all these rules sometimes when we have this rule, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do that. And you feel like all you're doing is saying you can't, and clean this up. But then you realize, wait a minute, half those things have nothing to do with what you truly believe in, and you can just let them go. Think about that. Think about cutting back on 50% of your nose. It's just opens up your whole family life.
And talk a little bit about how the difference that it makes for the children as well as the parent in terms of building confidence in the children. Like how
Mm.
how having these boundaries or having this understanding of what's expected and how it aligns with what the family cares about really can build confidence and resilience in children.
Well, it can. And think about a child when you have all these rules and all these no's and all these you have to's. I want you to picture a hammer. Every time you say no and every time you say have to, picture a hammer. Bam,
Mm,
a light hammer, not a heavy hammer.
sure, sure.
Just bam, 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 bam. What if someone was doing that to you all day long? At some point, you're just going to blow and go, stop it. You're just going to have a tantrum. You're just going to, because you've had enough.
Mm-hmm.
What if the hammer was hardly, think about how much more you could just be calm and have time to recover from the disappointment. So
Yes.
that being able to let some things go gives your child more calm,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
then on the other end, when your child knows why you're saying yes or no, it makes sense to them, or it
Mm-hmm.
starts to make sense. They might not like it, but it makes sense.
Right.
Right. And so and then they know where the line is. There were sometimes when kids were sent to my office as the school principal
Mm-hmm.
and they had done something. Maybe they had said something flippant to a teacher, or they had just said, usually it was saying something, kind of what we would consider rude. And
Right.
I would talk to them about it. And after I would talk, I would become clear that they didn't see anything wrong with what they said.
Mm-hmm.
To them, it was, a line from television or something they'd heard
Mm.
on the playground, or they have an older sibling and they just said, to, whatever. Like if you say to a teacher, yeah, whatever.
Right, right.
Whoa, whoa, right?
Uh-huh.
But what if you don't see anything wrong with that? What if that's how you talk to at home, and
Mm-hmm.
or parents
Mm-hmm.
think, it's fine, whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
so I would often explain to children there's a line, it's an
Mm-hmm.
invisible line. And
Mm-hmm.
with teachers,
Mm-hmm.
certain words and certain ways of talking is what we call crossing the line, and you
Mm-hmm.
cannot cross the line. And
Mm-hmm.
this is one of those things that crosses the line. You need to stay on the other side of the line. And they
Right.
would. It was like, oh, okay, because they just didn't know where the line was. It wasn't
Right.
that they were being rude on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
They just, and once I explained that invisible line, we got a
Mm-hmm.
lot more cooperation. And I think that when you parent with values, your children know where the line is
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and they know when they've crossed it. Like you'll
Right.
get an apology, you'll get well, sorry, dad. Well, sorry, mom, because
Mm-hmm.
they realize, uh-oh, I crossed that line.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Whoops.
Mm-hmm. They just come here. They want to know how to play this game
Yes.
of life, and
Yes.
that's what we're here for, to train them and coach them and guide them, and as time progresses, as they get older, we can consult. We can be a consultant on the sidelines
Yes. Yes.
as they go. Well, thank you again, Sari. I enjoyed our discussion, and one more time, let our attendees know where they can learn more about you and your
Well,
work.
my website is theparentaledge.com, www.theparentaledge.com. And that's where my newsletter is. That's where I have just a lot of, I have a blog, and you can just read those blogs, pick the one that fits what you're dealing with at any point in time,
Mhm.
and get my newsletter and follow me on social media.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And is it the Parental Edge or Sari Goodman?
Sari Goodman on LinkedIn and Facebook, and the Parental Edge on Instagram.
Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you again for spending time with me today. I just love the focus on the values. I think when you start there, um,
Yes.
parenting seems a little less daunting.
I think so. I think so. Well, thank you very much, Carol, for having me. It's been wonderful.
All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your day.